So we're on 331. This is chapter 30, verse Yodalit. I just want to make a remark up until here. At this point in time, Leah has 4 children, Rachel's handmaid has 2, is 6, and then Leah gave her handmaid to Yaakov, and she had 2, so it's 8. It's 8. I noticed that in all the cases, except maybe one, the women are giving the names to the children. One is Vayikra. It could either mean that, and the Mepharshim are split, could mean that it's either Yaakov or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but all the other ones are given by the mothers. Now there are, shall I call them philosophers? That's too dignified. There are people who think that giving a name is power, and it defines who you are, and it shows that you're subservient, and they want to make a whole big deal out of that. And they want to say that Adam gives a name to Chava, so you see that proves that the men are more powerful, and they're the ones who are controlled, the women are subservient. There's a whole long anthropological rigmarole about it. But if that's true, it's very funny that Shiftei Kah, the 12 tribes of Israel, the names are all given by the women. I think it's very exaggerated, the whole thing. Okay, now, a bunch of very dramatic, powerful, and surprising incidents that are taking place now. So this is again verse, I can't say it as usual, 14. Reuven went out in the days of the wheat harvest. He found Dudaim in the field. He brought them to Leah, his mother. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's Dudaim. So look at Rashi in 14. I mean, let me ask you, what would you think that would need comment here? Of course, maybe you don't. Offhand, what needs comment here? Yeah. Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, what is that? Okay, that.
Maybe that's a comment. I don't know.
Well, they're flowers of a certain kind.
Oh, okay.
Suppose there was a fateful meeting where the plotters got together to plot the thing, and the story says it was Wednesday night, and the plotters got together, and wouldn't you say? And if it had been Thursday night, it would have been different. Why is the book telling me it was Wednesday night? Why do I need to know that it was Wednesday night? Why do I need to know that this incident about the flowers took place in the times of the wheat harvest?
Does that mean that he went out for a different purpose, knowing the purpose and why he went out?
Well, listen, you have to distinguish the stage in which we explain what the question is versus the stage in which we give an answer to the question. You're answering the question already. I'm pointing out.
I'm just asking if there's a significance, and maybe would there be a significance then?
Listen to me. I understand what you said, but you're not understanding what I'm saying. Again, there are 2 stages in this type of investigation. Number 1 is to recognize that there is a question, and the second is to try to find an answer to the question. Right? You're skipping over the first stage. I want you to register the first stage. I asked what things are required, what things need questioning here. You didn't say. When I point out that it could be the time, you're already answering. Stop to register that there was a question that you didn't register. You didn't see it as a question. So you have to learn that this is a sort of thing's a question. When it says that a certain event happened at a certain time in a certain place, you ask yourself, why does the text bother to tell me the time and place, unless there's some significance to the time and place? Now, as we go on in the story, you will see that the fact that it's the time of the wheat harvest plays no role in the story whatsoever. But you have to ask, That's what motivates Rashi to say what he says. Watch. Rashi says, this is mentioned to tell you the praise of the tribes, sons of Jacob, for it was the time of the wheat harvest, yet he did not reach out his hand to theft, to bring wheat or barley, which were available during this season, but rather he brought something ownerless about which no one cares. In other words, they're living there, they're shepherds, they're not farmers, they're not agriculturalists, they don't own land, they're not using the land, right? Wheat and barley would belong to whoever owns the land because they're valuable products. They grew wild and they were harvested. These flowers, nobody cared about. There's no question of stealing. So you see, and he was a child. Reuven is a child. Still, that's the way he was trained. Be careful not to take other people's property. That's why it bothers to say it. Fine. Now Rashi on. Okay. Okay, so now we're up to 16. 15? Yeah. So, Leah said, Rachel says to Leah, please give me some, not all, just some. But she said to her, was your taking my husband insignificant? And to even take my son's Dudaim? So, look at Rashi. I mean, this is pretty clear, but let's just get it on record. To even my son's Dudaim. This is read in astonishment. It's a question. To do this also? To take even the Dudaim of my son? In other words, you did one thing. You're even going to do more? Now, remember, let's go do this. The commentators all struggle with this. Remember the story that we had that Yaakov gave Rachel simanim. He gave her a code so as to protect them against being deceived on the night of the wedding. And Rachel gave the code to Leah. She used the code so she wasn't discovered the night of the wedding, only in the morning. That's how Leah got married to Yaakov. That's it. Leah is married to Yaakov because Rachel made it possible. Now, the text told us there was a week's gap. Then he married Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. Now Leah says to Rachel, "You stole my husband." I don't know. I mean, isn't that a little exaggerated? You're only there because of Rachel. Excuse me. You wouldn't be married at all if it weren't for Rachel. Now you're accusing Rachel of stealing your husband? Right? How could she possibly say that? So one of the Meforshim said, I forget who, said something really, I think, astonishing and beautiful. Rachel, remember, I don't know if you remember this, but we said that Avram and Sarah, each one did a tremendous favor for the other, but painted it as if they were receiving a favor rather than doing a favor. So the other one shouldn't have a hakaras hatov. Rachel did a similar thing for Leah. She didn't say, "Oh, you poor, unfortunate creature. Oh, you're being victimized. I'll save you from your distress." No, she didn't say that. What she said was, "You deserve it. You're greater than I am. If anyone deserves to be married to Yaakov, it's you. I know he gave me the son, but I'm giving you this to you because it's yours by right. I'm not doing anything right. I'm not doing you any favors. This is what you deserve. It would be a crime if I didn't give you this code, these simanim." And she convinced her. So Leah held no gratitude to Rachel for doing what she did, which was the point of Rachel's action. She wanted to do it in such a way that Leah didn't feel a chova of hakaras hatov. And she so successfully convinced her that now Leah can say, as you said, I'm the one who should really be married. I'm the older one. I'm superior, and so forth and so on. And now he has more affection for you. It must be because you've stolen his affection, and I have a complaint against you. But it's an astonishing accomplishment on Rachel's part, and it shows even more what she gave up. Rachel gave up. It's mind-boggling what she gave up. I explained to you, she only had 13 years together with him. When they came back to the land of Israel, she died, and she gave up giving birth, so to speak, to all 12 tribes and having only 2. I mean, what Rachel sacrificed is gigantic. And even this she sacrificed. Okay, now, look at this. This, if you don't faint when you read this the first time, your brain's not working. Rachel said, therefore, he shall lie with you tonight in return for your sons Dudaim. Ma? What? What does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. Middle of the page at the bottom. Therefore he shall lie with you tonight. The lying of this night was mine. It belonged to me. He's coming to me. My name's on the calendar. He has to come to me. He belongs to me. He's my property. I want him. He was to spend the night with me. But I give it to you in exchange for the Dudaim of your son. Now, shall I ask the obvious question? Doesn't he have any say in the matter? She said, it's my night, excuse me. It's marked on the calendar, it's my night. But I want the flowers, so I'll give him to you. You give me the flowers. Why am I asking him where he wants to go? That's not in the cards. You don't ask him. He just they dictate to him his life of his marital life. Yeah, that's the way it was. That's the way it was. He did that. He did that for them because, first of all, because I told you that they were each part one was dedicated to the other. But more than that, there's a mitzvah in the Torah when a man gets married. V'simach has ishto asher lakach. He has to cause the wife whom he married to rejoice, and because of that mitzvah, he is excused from military duty for a whole year because he has a prior mitzvah, the mitzvah of causing her to rejoice. That's a one-sided mitzvah. He has to do that for her. She doesn't have such a mitzvah for him. So, the basic mitzvah, there is a responsibility, but it's not a mitzvah. It's complicated. There's a kinyan. Okay, there are all sorts of complicated things to go into. But the fact is, here you see it in practice, that it was only up to them, not up to him. Yeah.
Rashi suggests here that because Leah takes this exchange, ultimately that shows she took light of the patriarch or like of Yaakov, and so that would punish her down the road.
I think you got this backwards.
Okay.
Look at it again. Let's read it together.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, he shall be with you tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. Well, I read that before. The lying the night was mine. Who's speaking?
Rachel. Yes.
Rachel is speaking. Rachel is speaking. Lying the night was mine. I give it to you. Rachel gave it to Leah. And he shaved the Dudaim of your son. And now, since she belittled, who's the she? Rachel belittled lying with the righteous one because she traded it for flowers. Therefore, she was not privileged to be buried with him. Leah was buried with him in Mars Machpelah, and Rachel was buried in the Kever Rachel. She belittled it. Now, and the next phrase is even more brutal. You have to understand that these flowers were associated with fertility. And what Rachel is saying to Leah is that you have children, and I don't have children. Give me some of them, so that I too can have children. I don't want all of them. You already have 4 children, more than one quarter, which would have been your natural amount. The Shifchas have 2 more. You have 3, so you have 6 already, and I 2 proxies, and none of my own. Give me some of them. And Leah says no. So Rachel sees she has to give in something because she's unhappy about the fact that Yaakov prefers Rachel to Leah. Okay, so she says, I'll give in. He can lie with you tonight, not me, but that's.
So that mitzvah of making the woman rejoice the first year refers in what realms? Like,
Marital. That's why he's got to be at home. He can't send her money in the mail, and so on and so on. He's got to be at home. He's got to be at home. It goes beyond that. I always tell Chassan and Kala, I say to the Chassan, everybody knows, Chassan is like a king for a week. I say, that's true, and the wife is like a queen for a year. Because of the mitzvah of Simach Ishto, he can't leave town unless he gets her permission. She wants him around. He can't leave town without his permission. That goes on for a year. So you build up a great big deal about the chassid being like a king for a week. She's a queen for a year. Yeah.
Even if there's 2 points. Even if he had an obligation, would that give them the right to be able to exercise, saying he will do this for you?
That's an interesting question. Maybe it's not obvious to push it that far. I could hear what you're saying this way, like it's my night, but I'm not forced to do it. It's my privilege. So I could say no, I don't need it, I don't want it. But how can I trade it for somebody else? Right. Oh, so wait a second. Now answer the other question. Answer your question differently. Answer him in order to answer him. What gives someone simcha? What gives someone simcha, joy, is when things work out the way they want it to work out. Rachel wants Yaakov to be with Leah, so as to justify her kinyan of the flowers. Right? If he goes and says, I'm going on vacation for a week, she won't keep the flowers because Leah will say, I didn't get my part of the bargain. So Rachel wants him to be with Leah.
So it's still his decision.
It's her decision. No, it's her decision. She can determine it. The question is, where does she get the leverage from? So if simach means to do what I want, then she can say, I want you to do this, and therefore you have to do it. Because the mitzvah is that you have to do what I want. Right?
Even if so basically she has the right to exercise the ability to tell him what to do, as long as it's for her own benefit, you're saying, as long as she gets.
Which would be unnatural if it weren't so, right? Why would she do it then? Otherwise, she's not.
Yeah.
Right,
So
she's not.
that means that this is still in the first year of marriage?
No, this was not in the first year of marriage. They had children already, very, very children. So this isn't that mitzvah specifically, right? But it's the same concept that that he has that responsibility. And however you say it, this was the arrangement that he had with them. It's still an astonishing arrangement. If you have this anthropological bias that in the ancient Near East, men owned their women, father owns his daughters, and a husband owns his wives. You could never explain this. And there's more coming that you could never explain. But you could never explain this. A man has a harem for his pleasure. Do what he wants to do. They're telling him, you do what we want to do. That's astonishing. Yeah.
I mean, in order to make such an exchange with Leah, it means these Dudaim have to be extremely valuable. Like it seems to be like it's something like that reaches levels that.
So I said they're associated with fertility.
Right.
And they're probably very rare. Otherwise, you could have gone picking them in the garden herself. Reuven comes home with something that's very rare, and she's barren, and she says, maybe this is my salvation. Okay, fine. So now watch this. This is 16. Jacob came in from the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him. And she said, "It is to me that you must come, for I have surely hired you, my son's Dudaim. I paid the price. You're coming to me. Very brutal. Very brutal. Let's see if Rashi says anything here. I don't think he says anything here. No. Nothing. I mean, it's I've given her a fee. Okay, fine. So, he lay with her that night. God hearkened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. So, the result of Leah's giving flowers of fertility to Rachel is that Leah has another son, and not Rachel. Leah said, God has granted me my reward because I gave my maidservant to my husband. She doesn't see it for that, right? She called his name Yisachar. Leah conceived again and bore a son, sixth son to Jacob. We saw this. Right? Leah said, God has endowed endowment with a good endowment. Now my husband will make his permanent home with me. I've born him 6 sons, because 6 is half of 12. I've now single-handedly played the role of 2 of the wives. 2 of the 4 wives. And she called the name Zvulun, born a son, a daughter, and she called her name Dinah. Let's take it Rashi. Now, you can't appreciate this, but when it says in the Hebrew, he lay with her that night, the Hebrew is not quite normal. It says, Vayishkav imo balayla hu. Not balayla hahu, that night. It's strict in the Hebrew, it's balayla, at night, him. Him. There's no him in the context except Yaakov, and that's who we're talking about. So there must be implying there's another him. And Rashi takes this quite dramatically. At night, he, translator got it, that's the perfect way to write it. He is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be he, assisted him. That Yisachar should emerge from him from there, because Yisachar, the tribe Yisachar, provided the heads of the Sanhedrins, the greatest scholars. So this was very, very special. This pregnancy and this birth was very special. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was involved in a special way. As the word "who" hints to, that it's not just the 2 of them there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was involved in this in a very special way. Now it says, "Vayishma el Leah," right? So it says, God hearkened to Leah. We didn't hear Leah say anything. So we have to understand what do you mean hearken to Leah. Now it could be, sometimes, that there was a prayer that wasn't said. You don't have to recite everything that happens. Sometimes what happens before is known in the text only by the reaction later. But here, look at what Rashi says. 17, God hearkened to Leah because she was desirous and putting forth effort to increase tribes, to bear more sons, be the progeny of the right. We say actions speak louder than words. It means her actions spoke her feelings, her hopes, her desires. And it says God heard. Heard can mean I read the message in your actions. Heard doesn't have to mean you created airwaves by causing vibrations in your vocal cords. So I think that's an important point in what Rashi is saying. That hearing is a matter of communication, and the communication doesn't have to be verbal to use the word heard. Okay, now look at the Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. Will make his residence with me. This has the same meaning as main home. Something in Old French, house of residence. From now, his main residence only with me, for I have as many sons as all his other wives. That's why the number 6 is important. So, now, Dinah. And by the way, again, of course, she gave the name Dinah. Look at the Rashi here. And Rabbis explain she's called Dinah. Now, Dinah comes to the word in Hebrew, din, which means judgment. Talking about legal judgment, like legal judgment. Leah made a judgment about herself. She reasoned, if this one is a male, my sister Rachel will not even be like one of the maidservants, because there'll only be one left. She prayed over the fetus, and it was transformed to a female, because it was a male. It was a male. And her prayer transformed it into a female. Now, this, did I bring this in the footnote here? Let me check. 2. No. Yeah. There's a Mishnah in Brachos which says, you're not allowed to, roughly it says, you're not allowed to pray for things that are already settled. Already settled. For example, you come home from a long trip, and you hear people yelling and saying, Oy for poor Yaakov, and you have a son named Yaakov, and you say, Yiratzon, that is not my son. Excuse me, he's already hit. He's already suffering. Can't change it now. Can't change the past. Right? So that's called a tefillah shav. Not allowed to do that, which should be very obvious. Also, changing the sex of the pregnancy, would be praying for a miracle, because it's already determined that it's a boy or a girl. Now, Rashi says it was a boy and it turned into a girl. But there's a way out. And the way out is to say that it's within the first 40 days. Because the Gemara calls the first 40 days Maya Ba'alma, just water. And although it's controversial, my Rebbe Zatzal campaigned that what we would call an abortion in the first 40 days should be perfectly mutter, because it's not a being. It's just what the Gemara calls it Maya Ba'alma. Trust the Gemara, and it's only water. Since there's only water, you could certainly expel it. Now you'll say, but we know that the genes are fixed at conception. It's either XX or XY. So the male and female is already determined. And the answer is that that's not true. It's not biologically true. First of all, in terms of observation of the fetus, I have from a book of a gynecologist who says that the sex is visible at the end of the 6th week, which is 42 days. But more than that, an XY can develop as a female. This is a known syndrome because all mammalian development is by default female. Something has to happen to transform the female into a male. What happens is this. You have the XY gene. The XY gene produces a certain hormone, and hormone enters into the development of the fetus and changes it from the default female into a male. But there are syndromes in which the XY doesn't produce the hormone. There's something blocks the production of the hormone. In which case, even with the XY, the development is female development. So that means that talking about a man being fixed as a man at conception is wrong. He's fixed as a man after the XY does its work to produce the hormone, and the hormone enters into the development of the reproductive organs, and it develops in the male direction. And for an XX, if you introduce the hormone artificially, it'll develop like a man. Everything depends upon that hormone. So really, the sex is not fixed. So if she davened within the first 40 days, then it comes out, it isn't male or female. When Rashi says it's male, it means it was meant to be male. It was destined to be male, and she changed its destiny. Not that biologically it was a male, in which case she wasn't praying for a miracle. So either way she was, and she's an exception, and she prayed for a miracle because she felt asking for the miracle was worthwhile, important, or she did it in the first 40 days, in which case it wasn't a miracle, it wasn't fixed yet. Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned the previous year that to avoid the shame that Rachel would go through if she wouldn't have at least the two children as the maidservants had also. Isn't a little bit shameful also to have the same amount as the Rav said would ask to the
See, you
Rav?
asked me that, and I said it was a good question. I don't
You didn't
know.
ask the Rav? The Rav didn't ask
I didn't ask anybody. No.
The Rav said he would ask, I said
No,
the-
you're right
the
to
Rav-
ask. I didn't ask. So I think it's a reasonable question. It's a logical question. Yeah.
My question is, if she was worried about the potential of having another son, why lay with him again and then potentially have to rely on the deliverance of a miracle which isn't sure, when she could have just avoided the potential outcome of having so many kids by just not being with him again, if that was her concern?
Interesting question. That's an interesting question. And the Gemara tells us there are ways that, after intercourse, there are ways to prevent conception. Why wouldn't she take those measures rather than proceed normally and then have to use prayer upon? Well, she had stopped conceiving. That's why she took her maidservant and gave her to Yaakov, and they had two children. It says she stopped conceiving.
But she had Yiskar, and so her
She had Yisachar afterwards.
Yes, and so like her womb opened again, and then she had another. She laid with him again. After, so like the maidservant.
Oh, you mean after number 5?
Yeah, so she had kids. She had the maidservant. Then she had another kid born again.
Right, so now she knew she was fertile again.
Right.
Good, very good.
And then why risk it?
All right, so why, instead of, and actually it's even more than that. She could have, no, hold on. You don't want to stop after 5, because that's not, that doesn't determine anything. She should stop after 6,
Yeah.
Right, she should stop after 6.
Which means already 10 children of Yaakov.
I don't know, it's a good question. It's a good question.
Is she in the obligation to have kids?
No.
More kids at all? No?
Certainly not after 6. I mean,
Hashem had always favored her. Maybe she felt like she would be able to get a daughter out of it. I don't know.
if so, then she shouldn't have worried that it was a son. She worried and davened specifically. I know, they're both good questions. Both good questions. I have to try to remember to ask. I was sick over the last couple of days, so I wasn't. Okay. So now, finally, we're on verse 22. God remembered Rachel. God hearkened to her, opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son. Now, watch this. She said, God has brought in my disgrace. The word in brought in Hebrew is asaf. She called his name Yosef. Asaf, Yosef, Samach Pei in both words. One's an aleph, one's a yud. The basic root is Samach Pei in both of them. But Asaf is past. By giving me a child, you show that I'm not barren, not cursed, not, right? But I'm naming my child not on the basis of what you did for me by giving me this child. I'm naming this child for the sake of the next child. So it should add to me another son. Which again, if you know about the 12 and you know about the 6 and the 2 and the 2 and dividing up and the 4 mothers and everything else, makes perfect sense. Otherwise, it's funny to call this child. And Asaf, by the way, is a name in the Tanakh. So it's certainly perfectly acceptable as a name. It is a name that's used, and yet she's not satisfied with it. Now, what does it mean? 22. God remembered Rachel. Let's cross that bridge. So first of all, remember Rachel, remembering her person, that's like Oh, I forgot all about Pete. I haven't seen him in 23 years. Pete, sure. How are you, Pete? No question. There's no question of remembering as opposed to forgetting. So Rashi gives us a whole list of facts. Let's look at 22. He remembered on her behalf that she gave her signs over to her sister. He remembered this about her, and that she was distressed lest she ascend to the lot of Esau, lest she become Esau's wife. Who knows? And lest Jacob divorce her. Of course, she has no children. She went through a lot of worries. And in fact, Esau did think of that. So that's what God remembered. Okay, so now I've satisfied the verb. What about the I'm sorry, I've satisfied the object of the verb, what he remembered. What about the idea of remembering? When you say someone remembered something, usually that's as opposed to forgetting it. And in the case of God, we believe that there's no possibility of forgetting. It's not a havamina. So why would the text say he remembered? The answer to this question lies in the first verse of the second chapter of the book of Esther. The book of Esther starts with a banquet, and the Queen Vashti displeases the king, challenges the king, and he has her deposed. According to the Midrash, he has her killed. And chapter 2 starts with, and Achashverosh remembered Vashti and what happened to her, what was decreed against her, and then the next sequence is he took measures to find a new queen. Now, how are we supposed to picture this? Achashverosh is strolling the palace and thinks to himself, Vashti, I haven't seen Vashti in a while. I wonder, is she in Acapulco running up the credit cards? Where is Vashti? Oh, slipped my mind. Yeah, we deposed her, we killed her. I forgot all about that. Probably not the right shot, right? Probably not the right shot. That's because in biblical Hebrew, we're talking about a human being now. We're talking about a human being, not special for God. Vayiskor means to take a present action on the basis of a past fact. To take a present action on the basis of a past fact. Not everything you know plays a role in all of each and every one of your decision making. Usually there's a very tiny sliver of what you know that plays a role in a particular decision. Here it means that Achashverosh said, hey, not right for a king to be without a queen. Vashti got destroyed. Now it's time to rectify that. He's taking an action on the basis of the fact that Vashti got killed, removed and killed. Here, all these things that Rashi says, they're part of the history books. God's mindful and knowledgeable of everything at all times, but not always do they play a role in a particular decision. Now, God decided to take all these things into account and to it. So it means that those things which were in the history book now became the basis for the action that he takes now. That's what this core means. And this is a template for all psychological verbs vis-a-vis God, that we're not getting a private peek into God's inner psychology. They're all meant to describe action, and each one has to be explained in terms of what description is appropriate. But this is a general rule. Okay. Okay, this is an agadata, which we're doing shots, so we're not going to look at. Fine. What was that?
Agadata is nice.
Okay, 22. No, am I misreading it? 25. And it was, when Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Yaakov said to Lavan, grant me leave that I may go to my place, to my land. Okay, let's test you now. What do you want to say about 25? What needs an explanation?
Verse 25?
Yeah.
Why is he telling Laban this?
I can't hear you.
Why is he telling this to Laban?
No. Yeah.
Why isn't the trigger like the 7 years finished, as opposed to the trigger is when Rachel gave birth to Yosef?
Yeah. I mean, the verse says, you said it even more. Okay. It says, when Rachel be given birth, he said, I want to go home. What does one thing got to do with the other?
Because he's the last son.
And even more than that, we just finished reading that she gave birth, right? If you left that out, it's a story in sequence, isn't it? Would you expect that 6 months went by or a year went by? You know, she gave birth, and he said, right? But it stresses it. When he said that, now you're putting it very well. Not only that, but he could only go when the 7 years is up. And he didn't wait extra time, so it's very peculiar. Here it's putting in your face the idea that here giving birth to Yosef, that's what triggered his request to go home. I mean, this is a sensitivity you have to develop. It says A happened and B happened. It means that A forced B, or was it just a reason for B? And if you don't see the connection with A and B, you have to ask. So look at Rashi. 25. When Rachel given birth to Yosef, this means once the nemesis of Esau was born. Okay? 15 points for anybody who knows what nemesis means. I would never use that word to explain. In ordinary English, ordinary readers, that nemesis means a thing that frustrates you and destroys your hopes, is your counterpoint which undermines you, right? Now, we know that the ultimate confrontation between the Jewish people and Esau is going to take place through a descendant of Joseph. Joseph is the one who carries that ability. And Yaakov, remember it was a prophet, so he knew that Yosef had that power. So now he says, that's the case. I don't have to be afraid of going home. I know when I go home, there's going to be a conversation with with Esau. That's true, but I don't have to worry about it because Yosef is born. Now, this you should remember this because in a few weeks when we get there, it's going to be something that needs explanation. But in the meantime, that's what the relevance of it. And he quotes a verse. The verse says, "The house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for straw." So you have Jacob in general, and then you have Joseph particularly as his son, and they're going to burn up the house of Esau. Okay, so now he says the difference is between Jacob is going to be a fire, and Joseph is going to be a flame. So he says fire does not affect over a distance, but a flame can travel. So now, Jacob trusted in Kosh Baruch Hu and wanted to return to the land of Canaan, which he had promised him that he would be able to do. Now watch how he puts this here. This is very poignant. "Give me my wives and my children for whom I have worked for you, and I will go. You are aware of my work that I worked for you." What strikes you as peculiar in 28? Is this, I can't read it. 26.
Seems redundant.
Yeah, why? Where's the redundancy?
Saying, you're aware of my work, that I worked for you, obviously.
Okay, that's true, but even more logically peculiar, but logically leading, right? So, start 26 again. You would never talk like this. You would never say anything like this. If you wrote for a newspaper, the editor would say, big red X. It's unreasonable what you're writing. How can you say, give me something that's mine? Give me my wives? That makes no sense. Say, give me your wives. You say, give me my wives. They're already mine. What do you mean, give them to me? You understand me? That's ridiculous. You would never say that. Give me my car.
With his daughters, no?
Yeah.
There's still any sense of, maybe ownership is not the right word here, but connection here in which he still has to ask for permission?
Okay. So that's what we see here, that although they're mine by right, but you don't treat them as mine, you think of them as yours. So I'm, on the one hand, I'm not going to say give me them, because that I would be admitting that they're not mine. No, they are mine. But I know I have to ask you, this is just like the king of Sodom, right? Who understood that everything belongs to him, no matter what. When he says to Abraham, give me the people and the property, take for yourself. Desta points out, that's ridiculous. If you have to ask him, if the king of Sodom has to ask Abraham for the people, it means the king of Sodom recognizes that the people are in Abraham's hands. Right? Well, if the people in Abraham's hands, so is the property in Abraham's hands. So how can he say to Abraham, take the property? Take it, he's got it already. It's his already. Says with Desta, you see that according to the king of Sodom, everything belongs to me. Everything's really mine. You're sitting on it, you got a key, under lock and key, you're a thief. Nothing belongs to me. Therefore, if you really keep the property which you already conquered, you're taking it from me. And that's why Abraham doesn't want to take it, because he says, if I take it, you'll say that that you made me rich. You made me rich. I own it already. But that's what you'll say. You'll say you made me rich. So here also Jacob says, give me my wives, because I know that you think that you have control. I know that you want control. I know that you think you're in charge, even though we made a deal and I worked for 14 years and they really belong to me. I'm asking you to acknowledge my ownership and don't stand in my way. And he has to ask, because that's who love is, as we will see in spades as the story develops. A question?
Yeah. So just what do we know the influence of Lavan in the children of Yaakov? Like, what do we know from
I'll tell you, I don't, as you know, I don't specialize in Midrash, but I have a lot of external sources that, of course, the children are very young, and they're going to stay another 6 years. It could happen. It could happen. There's a whole essay by the Netziv on anti-Semitism and how to live in Golis. Interestingly, it's printed at the end of his commentary on Song of Songs. I believe that's Song of Songs. And what he says there is, Badad Yishkon, the secret to success in exile is to live apart, separate, detached, distinguished, non-integrated. That's the secret to success. And he brings an astonishing verse. The verse says the Jews in Egypt, that the context is that they stopped doing bris milah, and they stopped living in Goshen. They integrated throughout the land, and the pasuk says, "Vayahafoch libam l'sno es amo." God turned their hearts to hate the Jewish people. Turned their hearts to hate the Jewish people. So it says in the Tziv, until that time, they loved us. When we were separate and different, they loved us. And when we became like them and integrated with them, then this isn't nature now. God turned their hearts to hate us. That's how Golos works. Now, he says, the verse says that Jacob went down to Egypt, Armi Oved Avi, and Aramean was trying to destroy my father, and we went down to Egypt. The Arami is Lavan. He wanted to destroy us. We went to Egypt. Says the Netziv, that's because we needed to go to a place where we could be separate, where we could live up to Badad Yeshiv. And by Lavan, by implication, we couldn't. And here the point becomes very, very, very poignant. In other words, Jacob is married to his daughters, and Jacob's children are his grandchildren. What's he going to do? Go live in a cave? It's just not practical. And therefore the Badad Yeshiv can't be fulfilled there, and therefore he's going to lose there. He's not going to win. He's going to be destroyed there. Therefore he should go down to Egypt, where he can be set up separately and be isolated and distinguished, and there he can survive. So So that's all part of the background here. And I don't know what to say about how much effect he did have, but he could have had, and he couldn't protect himself against it. I don't know of any case where any of the sons of Jacob were affected by Lavan. But I may just be ignorant about that. Yeah.
I like the question because when I read the trigger from Yosef to telling Lavan he had to leave, I understood it instinctively as Yaakov was afraid that Lavan would corrupt the chosen, like his chosen son, or the most important one among them. And so he knew that that was the moment that he had to get out.
Okay, but I don't think that's right because he became the chosen son because he's a ben skunim, which doesn't mean a child of his old age, because if that's what it meant, he has a younger son, a younger brother, right? Nah, that's Binyamin, so that's just another. So, no, ben skunim means wise, that he could share his wisdom with him, and he could not do that as a newborn baby. So I don't think that's the issue here.
But the Rashi says that he understood that Yosef was the opposite to Esau.
Right.
So there was this sense, he's going by this, that he felt that there was something special about Yosef.
Right. He had a special position, but that doesn't mean he was a favorite son. That's going a little too far. Anyway, but okay, so now we see